the best thing that we can do as leaders is really allow the individual to flourish where they are best. The best comment that I've ever seen on social media is like, that guy's like Batman. Give him enough money to be like Batman and he'll go like make a bunch of stuff. And I would like be locked in my basement, like making all kinds of stuff. Things just became more focused. Like I said, the magnet that happens of the people that are best in the world that kind of gravitate towards that lifestyle. You know, what's the precision level of combatives that I can get? What's the precision level of blade work? What's the precision level of surveillance? What is the precision level of surreptitious entry? What's the precision level of skydiving? You know, so it's like all these different elements of what we want to be really good at. And I gravitated towards three things really throughout my time there. And the beautiful part about that place is that when, like I said, if you want to fix the problem, if you see something that's a gap and needs to be improved, you're the one. And so I leaned very heavily into research and development. You know, I was the R&D rep for my squadron for as much as until I left. Heath Robinson, which is actually on the Hilo in Extortion 17, he actually handed that job to me. I remember when he did it, we were out in Marana, and he was just like, hey, dude, I need you to take this job. Or do you want this? Because he saw that I geeked out with gear. That's a whole other story. But R&D rep, combatives and hand-to-hand, and sniper. Like, those are the three things that I was like, that's who I am. I got to get really, really, really good at all three of those things.
So do you have the freedom to gravitate towards what's pulling your interest?
Absolutely.
They don't mandate it.
No, because if you think about even a successful business today, the best thing that we can do as leaders is really allow the individual to flourish where they are best and what they love to do and what they will do with nobody paying them a cent. That's where we want everybody. Right? That's the whole goal of our lives, to get to that point. And the beautiful thing about being there was such high-level thinkers and such tenacious guys that have so much drive is that they gravitate towards those things naturally. I think there's very rare instances where you're like, oh man, we got a little bit of a gap here. I'll use breaching as an example, which is one that never comes up, but I'm just using it so it's clear. You know, if you watched Eddie's interview and you know that, you know, breaching is something that, you know, he did really well, is that we had a gap there. Well, then we would have to have the hard conversation like, hey guys, we need this amount of qualification going into this situation. We need a breacher, you know, but it doesn't happen like that because it naturally occurs. You know, you naturally feel out things that, you know, you're supposed to be doing. And that's how the squadrons are built. That's how the things come together, because you see all these guys have specialty skills. They're not going to put you over there if your skills are really going to be good over here. You know, good leaders are going to identify weaknesses. If the breaching is low over here, well, then the best breacher coming out is going to go there. You know, we're going to kind of put the teams together so they're all ready and stacked in a well-rounded manner. But individually, you know, you kind of have these are the things that are non-negotiable. Like, what's non-negotiable at Vigilance Elite? Like, you got to be driven. You got to love what you do. You got to want to be here, right? Well, everybody knows that. And so that's kind of the start of like how the qualifications occur. Everybody needs to know how to skydive. Everybody needs to know how to shoot. We should all know how to fight, but that's a battle that, you know, I had and we understand. But all these kind of baseline things is like, there's your base. We're all going to do those things. We're all going to have a way of the way we think about those, and we're going to apply them. Well, as you start to go to secondary and tertiary levels of training, then you can kind of start being more specific and specialized, where we get to the end, everybody's covered. Well, what's left? Well, Dom's going to go pick a course that I can go do, you know, combatives and Thai boxing and blade work and, you know, room clearing. And I'm going to pick what I really want to do. It doesn't always work that way, but it tends to fire the guys up in a way where it lets them get really good at what they do. Mm-hmm. So they've been able to do it the whole time, but now they put the icing on the cake with like solidifying. You know, you were a really good jump master and you did really good with tandems, you know, jumping out with dogs, but now you're going to tweak that a little bit and you're going to become a really good skydiver because of these techniques that you're going to work on with dropping out of the air with all kinds of stuff strapped to you, you know, just as an example. But
yeah. Yep. Let's, at the risk, I know this is probably, it could potentially be a very sensitive subject, but R&D, what all did that entail? How as elaborate as you can?
Yeah. The best way to describe the research and development aspect of what I did was from head to toe, you look at a guy, from strobe light to shoelaces, every piece of equipment and gear that somebody is using, we have to trust with our lives. Weapon systems included, armor included into that. So the full combat system is what's really included in the idea of how do we stay on the most cutting edge of development of using the best gear in the world. And that takes a very, very, very large amount of effort in staying out ahead of the curve of what everybody's making. That's why for me, I geeked out. I already had that entrepreneurial sense, but it wasn't just like government stuff that you're doing. You're literally the best R&D stuff that you're ever going to do or going to work with the guys that are so good at what they have going on from a commercial standpoint. Here's a tent maker that makes this seam specifically the way they mold it and how something comes together from a frame portion. They do it better than anybody else in the world because they develop the process. Okay, well, how do we develop that process into a waterproof bag that we could utilize for something that we need in a specific mission set? So like it wasn't beholden to this kind of box. It was like there is the funding and the resources that you need. Now go find the best thing in the world. And I love doing that. I mean, the best comment that I've ever seen on social media is like, that guy's like Batman. Give him enough money to be like Batman and he'll go like make a bunch of stuff. And I would like be locked in my basement, like making all kinds of stuff. But that's what it was for me, was utilizing the resources we had. Also, the biggest part of that job was listening to the guys' feedback. And as good as I got with knowing how guys were going to utilize the gear, what they really needed, and I did. I mean, I literally almost knew how they were going to use it better than they were, because that's how intimate I was with the process. But I still had to shut my mouth because I would still learn things along the way. Like, oh yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think of that. If we put the strobe here as opposed to like over here, it's going to do this because the bad guy's going to be over here and he might see this or don't see that. I've totally pulled that out of my butt. But you know what I'm saying, is that I want to hear the feedback so I don't shut myself off from anything that I might miss, so that I collaborate all of that input and I take it to what I'm going to build. Now I take it to what gear, weapon systems, and things that we utilize, and then you're responsible for running that project to ground with the help of whatever resources that you need.
Is there anything that you can talk about that you developed that you're one of your favorite things?
It's interesting to look at the guy from head to toe right now. Aside from the weapon system, everything that's still out there, I had a small part in giving feedback on, even right now, like the carriers that we're currently using, helmets that we're using. There's like little flares on the nods mount that I input and told them to move away to change the angle on. Comm systems, the in-ear comm systems that you could have ambient hearing. I was adamant about changing those. And I was the one that spearheaded a lot of that through all the different, like I worked with Silinx, I worked with Atlantic Signal, I worked with Thales, all these other companies to be able to bring this stuff and really test it out and be like, that sucks, change this. Lots of money spent on trying to get that to be right. And that's one thing that I was passionate about, was making sure that we had good hearing, because I knew how important it was on target. It's like some guys were just shoving foam in their ears. I'm like, what are you doing? You can't hear anything. Now you're blocking yourself out. I know we're getting ready to go shoot, but at the same time, you still need that awareness.